One of the reasons why I like to have all my ideas brainstormed before I start writing is simply because then I can do a better job organizing my thoughts and getting going. So I'm going to show you some different ways that I organize my thoughts. One thing is that I start with the different textual organization ideas. For instance, I could always do cause and effect. I could do classification. I could do definition. I could do comparison contrast, or I could do an ordering. Any of these would give me a structure to my paper, and I like kind of playing through each of those in my head so that I can start to see some ideas. For instance, if I take ordering and I think what my criteria is, maybe I'm going to think in terms of, in terms of risk. This says very little risk, moderate risk, high risk. I could do very little bravery, somewhat brave, very brave. There's lots of different ways to do this, but as long as I have a criteria, I can sort things out. So if I said not very brave, brave, somewhat brave, very brave, Hester returning home, this becomes a judgment for me, and I think I'm going to put that in the middle. Scaffold, when Dimsdale wants it to reveal him. Well, I think that's in the middle of the night, so I'm going to say that's not very brave. And what I can do is go through this and kind of rank out what is brave, what is not brave. I'm going to say going in the forest is pretty brave. And once I have these kind of ranked, then I'm going to see what they have in common and decide which ones I use for my evidence, which ones I don't. If I take a look at where I think I would want to take my paper more, I would likely do compare contrast. And what I can do is Dimsdale's bravery versus Hester's bravery, and maybe there's some things that they have in common. But I'm not going to probably do it that way, because when you do comparison contrast with all Dimsdale and then all Hester, you tend not to have too much insight. So I think I would do it this way, where it's point by point comparison contrast. If I take a look at this, and I'm going to do the different ways that Hester and Dimsdale use decoration and attire, and I'm going to have things like, when Hester dresses Pearl, how does that compare to the fact that Dimsdale decorates his place with David and Bathsheba? Both of those are in terms of decoration, but what does one say about Hester? What does one say about Dimsdale? And how do they compare and contrast? So if I take those, the way they use decoration, and compare them, I'm going to have something more exciting. If I do things like bravery, or risk, allowing Chillingworth to medicate Pearl, how is that compared to, I don't know, I think I'd have when Dimsdale talks to or stands up against Chillingworth. I don't even have that one. Stands up against Chillingworth about the graves, the flowers and the graves. Point is, I'm going to come up with moments that have a title, and then I'm going to compare and contrast moments there. Definition is just looking at what risk is. Classification tends to be a little bit more interesting. What are risks that pay off, risks that don't pay off? What are brave risks? What are foolish risks? What are clandestine risks? What are public risks? And you can start to classify. So the point is that once you have all of your stuff brainstormed, you can still play with how to organize it. But once you have all of that, you might have a good shot at getting a paper.